Hello everyone and welcome to my Bachelor Nation 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Golden Bachelor Sandra Mason and Gary Levingston get cozy. The Golden Bachelor alum Sandra Mason was seen getting cozy with the Golden Bachelorette's Gary Levingston. Both were fan favorites, so it makes sense that they would connect based on happiness and joy alone. Keep reading to see the two cast members closer than ever. Sandra Mason and Gary Levingston cozy up. The one thing that the Golden Bachelorette viewers said from the beginning was there were many matches available. Thanks to the Golden Bachelor, a plethora of ladies would be perfect for the 24 mansion men. Rather, the 23 who did not make it to the very end. Each of Joan Vasso's choices was the mirror image of one of the women she was competing for Jerry Turner's heart. They even wanted Susan Knowles and Jacqueline Choney based on their over-the-top personalities and how exuberant they were. So there have been a lot of metaphorical pairings. Leslie Fema, who appeared on Jerry's season, has been hanging out with Jordan Heller. Jordan was in Joan's final four and even made it to hometowns. However, Joan felt he had a wall up, so sent him home. She kept Pascal Abgi, Chalk Chapel, and Guy Ganser, with Chalk being her soulmate. Joan did truly love all of the men, and they filled her heart in so many different ways. One of them was Gary Levingston. When Joan's mother fell ill, he not only prayed for her, but he also wrote a special prayer for her. Unfortunately, he was sent home but was just seen cozying up with the Golden Bachelor's Sandra Mason. She was leaning up against him while he had his arm around her. It was a very sweet photo. More so, Sandra was so appreciative to have been able to expand her circle of friends, though she and Gary fit perfectly. Fans love them. After seeing Sandra Mason and Gary Levingston posing together, fans immediately wanted details. More so, they were hopeful the twosome were more than just friends. There is a lot of hope that they can click and maybe see if there is a romantic connection between the two of them. Maybe they will prove to be more than friends. It was a warm and glimmering sunset that bathed the garden terrace of the Golden Bachelor Villa in a soft honey glow, the kind of glow that could only foreshadow the beginnings of something magical. And there, nestled between the flickering lanterns and the distant murmur of a serenading violin, sat Sandra Mason and Gary Levingston, side by side on a bench that suddenly felt too small for all the chemistry buzzing between them. Sandra Mason, a radiant 75-year-old firecracker from Savannah, Georgia, was never one to blend into the background. From the first night, she made her presence known with a sparkling blue gown, a booming laugh, and a confession that she'd once skipped her daughter's wedding for a shot at true love. Some gasped, others judged, but Gary understood. Gary Levingston, the 72-year-old retired jazz musician with the voice of velvet and the patience of a saint, had been quietly stealing hearts with his warm smile and smooth demeanor. His idea of romance wasn't flashy, it was intentional. And when he handed Sandra a rose carved out of wood during Week 3's Arts and Crafts date, the subtext was clear. He saw something in her worth carving out time for. But tonight, things moved from flirtatious banter to something deeper, something real. "You know," Sandra said, sipping her rosé as she tucked a strand of silver hair behind her ear, "when I walked in here, I thought it was all just for fun, a last hurrah. But I didn't expect to feel this nervous sitting next to you." Gary chuckled softly, the kind of chuckle that wrapped around your spine like a cozy blanket. "I've played saxophone for 30 years, Sandra. I've performed in front of thousands, but my hands are sweating more right now than they did before my first solo at Carnegie Hall." They laughed, their hands brushing for a second too long, enough to send a jolt of electricity through Sandra's soul. From a distance, the other women noticed. "Oh, look at those two," murmured Joan, one of the more composed contestants who had previously thought herself a frontrunner. "They're like high school sweethearts on prom night." And in a way, that's exactly what they were. Because love doesn't recognize age, it recognizes heartbeats, and theirs were starting to beat in tandem. "You have this way of making me feel like the only person in the room," Sandra whispered. Her voice trembled, as if she were admitting a secret to the moon. "Like I'm not just someone's grandmother,"
Gary turned to her,
like I'm eyes warm and searching. "You are you, Sandra. And that woman, she's remarkable." The air thickened between them, and for a moment, the entire villa seemed to hush, as though giving them the space to write a new chapter. A kiss didn't come yet. It didn't need to. What they shared was deeper than lips could translate. It was a feeling, the kind that sneaks up quietly but announces itself with a roar inside your chest. Later that evening, host Jess Palmer pulled Gary aside for a confessional moment, asking about the quiet connection blooming in plain sight. Gary leaned back in the leather chair, the twinkle in his eyes betraying his calm voice. "Sandra's different. She challenges me. She makes me laugh. But more than that, when I'm with her, I feel like I'm standing still in the best way possible, like time finally paused so I could catch my breath and remember what it's like to be known." Back in the shared living quarters, the women gossiped like teenagers at a slumber party. "Did you see how he looked at her?" Kathy hissed. "I saw," replied Ellen with a sigh. "It's the kind of look you give someone when you already know how your story ends." Indeed, whispers of a frontrunner began circulating. While other women fought for attention with grand gestures, a musical performance here, a dramatic declaration of love there, Sandra didn't need fanfare. She and Gary simply were. The next day, producers surprised the group with a surprise 2-on-1 date, Sandra and Nancy. A setup that could have felt cruel now pulsed with high-stakes energy. The three went glamping, a luxury cabin, a fire pit, and a s'mores bar. While Nancy worked hard to win Gary over with sentimental stories and curated compliments, Sandra played it cool. "I'm not here to compete," she told Gary honestly. "I'm here to connect. And if it's not with you, then I'll leave knowing I stayed true to myself." Gary didn't say much, but his hand found hers again under the table. By the end of the date, Nancy was gone. The s'mores had melted, but so had the tension. Back at the rose ceremony, Sandra stood tall and elegant in a flowing burgundy gown. When Gary called her name, she smiled, but she didn't rush forward. She took a moment, nodded to the others, and only then walked up to accept her rose with grace and a knowing sparkle in her eyes. The other women clapped, but their eyes said what their lips didn't. Sandra was now the one to watch. In the coming weeks, previews teased an emotional hometown visit, where Gary would meet Sandra's tight-knit Southern family, including a granddaughter who seemed more protective than a Doberman with a bone. There was talk of a slow dance in her living room, of tears during a heart-to-heart on her porch swing, and of Gary uttering, "I could see myself here." The Golden Bachelor may have started as an experiment in senior love, but for Sandra and Gary, it was becoming something more than just another rose ceremony. It was becoming a sanctuary, a second chance, a golden kind of love that glows not because it's flashy or new, but because it's seasoned, earned, and cherished. As night fell and the villa once again shimmered in golden candlelight, Gary and Sandra shared their first kiss, not under cameras or stage lights, but beneath a fig tree, with no one but the crickets to witness. It wasn't a grand kiss. It was gentle, intentional.